Okay, this video will teach you what you need to know about data-driven learning. But what is it? It's basically learning based on data. But what kind of data? Here is a word that you might have heard of before: corpus or corpora in plural. Corpora are collections of millions of digitalized written and oral texts which allow linguists, researchers, and other academically sophisticated people to look and describe how real language works. Many years ago, grammarians would tell people what the rules of a language were and then created examples that fitted the rule. For example, the structure "there is always followed by a singular noun. So the grammarian writes, "There is a silly guy writing a silly example." However, corpus now provides a sound ground to do it all the way around. They look at examples of real language in use and then describe how they seem to work. For instance, here the data says "there is people," which would go against traditional rules. So the linguist now explores when and why people prefer to say "there is" instead of "they are." The question now is, how do they do it? How can they analyze the huge amounts of corpus of millions and millions and millions of words? Behold, the concordances. Concordances are pieces of software which allow these people to search for keywords in contexts. This will automatically look for a specific word or structure within the enormous amount of corpus and isolate them in the middle of the screen. This way, they can easily see how patterns interact with the words that come before or after the word or phrase they want to look into. If you want to learn how to use a concordance, click here to watch a video. Okay, but how is all of this related to you, a teacher? You're not a linguist and not a researcher, so what's the value of all of this? To understand that, let's check the story of DDL. This is Tim Jones, who in 1991 had the brilliant idea. He suggested using corpora in class and allowed learners to look up patterns and discover their form and function by themselves. This would promote self-discovery and the development of cognitive and metacognitive learning strategies, which are often neglected in grammar. Cool idea, huh? Let's look at this from a pedagogical perspective. There is this guy called Batstone who wrote about two approaches to grammar: product and process approaches. The first one is very deductive. Teachers present certain isolated structures which are expected to be noticed by the learners and then defined in terms of their uses and functions. Sounds fairly familiar, right? However, this approach has some well-known disadvantages which you might be also familiar with. Rules are partially incomplete, and at times they are incomprehensible to students who fail to understand the abstract meta-language and rule. Been there, done that, right? On the other hand, process approaches encourage creativity and self-discovery. Learners here take responsibility for their own learning process by trying to understand the language by themselves with indirect guidance of the teacher. However, as most things in life, this approach is not perfect either. This approach may lead to the early fossilizations of language mistakes, and many learners fail to move to higher levels of proficiency once they get themselves understood. But where is DDL located here? Well, interestingly, it's right there, in the middle. Why? Because it takes the best of both perspectives. By isolating the pattern, learners pre-select and isolate the language. So basically, grammar is discovered by learners and then language is produced autonomously. Interesting, right? But probably you're wondering why to try such an approach. Well, mainly because of three strong reasons. Concordances can have a considerable influence on the process of learning by stimulating learners' speculation and autonomy. This in turn promotes the development of cognitive and metacognitive learning strategies. Another important aspect is its huge potential for English for specific purposes, as corpora based on certain genres can definitely show learners how structures and patterns work within that specific field. These 3 points are the same ones which experts in translation studies have determined to be key elements in language pedagogy for translation training programs. That's amazing! Imagine this whole new perspective to grammar teaching in your classroom, where your role is more that of a conductor or director, as learners do most of the research and then class discussion leads to a consensus. Finally, I've got an invitation for you. Try it out! Grammar teaching has been neglected and most of the time disregarded by methods, teachers and learners. A DDL approach offers advantages and places grammar once again in the middle of the classroom. If you want to learn more about DDL, check out any of the following readings. Thank you very much for your time, and we hope you enjoyed the video.